Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we discussed the scary and mysterious Rosaria. We're really hoping we'll get a Rosaria hangout soon, or at least learn more about her history while in Fontaine. This week, though, we'll be discussing the Twin Archons. Additionally, I want to remind travelers to visit talesofteyvat.com to see visual representations of the lore mentioned during today's podcast. Your guides have put them together for you to make things a little easier to understand. On our site, you can also find some awesome goodies, including artist spotlights from the community for each episode, wallpapers for download, and a way to check out some of our favorite Genshin merch. Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. Now, I do feel like we are recording this episode on the perfect day because for me, it is thundering and lightning outside, and I feel like the Raiden Shogun and A are watching what we say.
Absolutely. If my power goes out again, we know who did it.
It's the Raiden Shogun puppet for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she would strike us down.
Yeah.
She's short-circuiting, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a great intro into making sure we talk about who we're actually talking about.
So we're going to be talking about three people in this episode who basically seem like triplets, but they're not. They are twins and a puppet, or possibly one child and two puppets. We don't know. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the three characters we're going to be talking about today are Raiden Makoto, Raiden A, and the Raiden Shogun. And just quickly, so you guys know who they are, and we'll be dropping the Raiden parts, we'll be referring to them as Makoto, A, and Shogun. Makoto is the original Electro Archon that ruled alongside A, who is dead.
Spoiler. We don't even meet her. Makoto said, yeah. Ada.
Did I say A?
No, but the way you said it was like, spoiler. She's yeah.
A is the current Inazuma Electro Archon, and the Shogun is a puppet created by A to rule over things in Inazuma, while A figured some things out inside the titty sword.
Yeah, while she was fucking off in the plain of Euthymia.
So we'll talk a little bit more about everything kind of just mentioned, but we wanted to give you guys just a basis of who those three are and what they will what we're referring to if we say that name during the episode, because it can get really confusing. I know in the past we've kind of interchanged A and Shogun a lot. So that being said, I think we should start talking a little bit about the OG Makoto. Rest in peace, or pieces, not really sure.
Oh, too soon.
Pieces.
Yeah.
Well,
She got a little pieced up.
She probably scattered her consciousness in other places.
Yeah.
God.
into her sister's puppet body.
Let me tell you, ever since we did our Gods of the Desert episode, I cannot stop looking for where I think Makoto died.
You're just waiting for like a little like statue there.
I'm over in Pari land, like, Makoto! Sarush is like, what are you doing? Sarush is like, stupid human.
Yeah.
But Makoto was the OG Electro Archon. She was very peaceful. She was anti-fighting, and she was very much into dreams.
Doesn't it seem weird that she's like anti-fighting when you consider that she was like the last lady standing after the Archon War? Like she had to kill other gods to become the Archon.
Yeah. Well, he was A around at that point? Like, was A the one really killing off Archons?
I think so,
Probably.
because they were a big duo, and when we look to the treasure tales of, I'm gonna butcher it again, Shochin Shingachuchi, I'm so sorry. We know that during this war, A, which is the twin, the one who is now the current Archon, was mainly kind of the sword doing all the fighting, while Makoto was kind of the rallying person that those that wanted to follow them, they followed Makoto.
Yeah, she was very peaceful, whereas A was like, I'm here to fight.
I have a thing about that because it's like Makoto and A represent two different eras or different time periods of Japanese history.
Really?
Yeah. So when we look at Makoto, a lot of like her idea of she's all about, peace, prosperity. She's got a lot of philosophy and culture around her. It reminded me a lot of the Edo period, which is roughly about 1600 to the mid 1800s when the Dutch arrived.
AKA Toma.
AKA Toma. Well, technically Toma's dad. He'd be fucking around. And so it was a very peaceful time. I mean, of course, there was always like spats of war and battle happening, but a lot of it, at least primarily, was an age, like a golden age, if you will. Then we look at A, who is more along the lines, and this is going back in time technically, to the Azuchi Momoyama period, which is between 1573 to 1603. And this is the implementation of the Sword Hunt Decree, which inspired in Genshin the Sokoku Decree. This is very much a time period of like everyone who has a vision, quote unquote, everyone who has a sword, like y'all need to get the fuck out. You need to stop with your shit. And they were like, hey, everyone about Christian missionaries and shit and foreigners that are here, get the fuck out.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that, but I remember researching that in a previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it was where like the current Raiden was like, I don't want anyone to be able to kill me ever. So we're just going to go door to door and take everyone's weapons.
Basically.
Did they at least get like a candy bar?
No. You would die if you refused.
I know, but like I feel like if I'm giving you my weapon, I should get like a Hershey's bar.
Well, I think they were like forced to become like farmers and stuff.
Farmers? Is that why scythes aren't a weapon, Al, in Genshin?
That's, if that is true, I'm going to be so fucking pissed off because that's my favorite fucking thing is to cut people's heads off. Anyone who's played Mordhau, and there are like maybe 5 people in the world who do, a favorite thing, best fucking weapon. I don't even care.
Wait, y'all keep telling me that I'm killing people. Al just said that she basically loves using the guillotine. Like,
It's
what?
not a guillotine. It's a handheld head chopper. It's different because it's not stationary.
Yeah, well, and she's like killing people in combat, whereas you're just like conceptually you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm conceptualizing that they'll die in combat.
There has been nothing about combat and like Noelle just dropping dead.
Mm-hmm.
No, I never said Noelle would drop dead. I said that by the end of the game, she might be killed.
What if they unlock scythes as like a weapon, and that's what kills all these characters that Feeny thinks are going to die?
We may have guns soon.
Well, we already do. The Fatui.
The skirmishers.
Yeah, the skirmisher.
Well, yeah, he's got a rifle.
I have a rifle, if you know what I mean. Anyway.
Oh, God.
Oh my.
Sheesh.
Oh, no. What the fuck? No, but Makoto and A definitely are 2 dueling representations of Japanese history and ideologies, which we'll definitely go further into. But Makoto, culture, literature, philosophy. A, kill them with a goddamn titty sword. Very different. And we kind of see the outcome of why that difference is kind of really bad for Inazuma.
Yeah, that's very true. And I just want to take a quick second. I meant to say this earlier, just to define that difference between what an archon and a god is in Genshin. Because Al, you've been mentioning a lot about our twin archons, which is the whole episode. And then we were talking about the Archon War and killing gods and jumping into the lore that you were just mentioning and some of the actual IRL history. So I just want to make it clear that our 7 archons are the people who came out on top. You want to be on top? After the Archon War, they basically killed a ton of gods to become the leaders of the 7 nations. And Makoto was one of those.
Think of it as a pantheon of gods. There are a lot of gods in mythologies and around the world, but you have a pantheon of your big players, and the 7 are these big players.
Yeah. Or they're like, your chess pieces.
Yeah.
Well, just like Orobashi was a god, and A killed Orobashi.
A beat the fuck out of him.
Wait, was it A or was it?
It was A. It was
Okay.
A. Because didn't kill Orobashi during the cataclysm, and that's why Makoto left and didn't say anything?
No, I don't think so. I believe it was before, because if you actually look at like we always said, like the timelines are a little funny, but Orobashi is kind of basically coming over with the Watasumi and Kanomiya people.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a civil war on Yashiori Island. And that's where that fight kind of happens. It's a separate fight.
So I guess that was after the Archon War.
It was after the Archon War, before the Cataclysm.
Yeah, because I think A was fighting monsters coming out of somewhere during the Cataclysm. Like
Yes.
abyssal monsters.
Mhm.
Oh, like the vagina wolf.
Yeah, along with Chio. And isn't Chio killed in that battle? Or like,
Yeah, is she the one that like gets a limb bitten off?
No, she gets eaten. Chio gets swallowed by what's called the Beast of Sin. And she is inside of this monster, and she slashes and dashes her way out. And she's, because she's been inside this really nasty monster, she is changed and tainted by this darkness, and she turns on A. And A actually, in this little fight, cuts her sword arm off and severs one of her horns, because she's an Oni, so she has horns.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but we don't know actually what happens to her, because she just kind of like goes off into the sunset. Some people think that she was killed by like Sayu, or not actually Sayu, but
the Shumatsuban.
yeah, the Shimatsuban,
Mhm.
or even the Magukenki, which originally I thought they were saying she could have been the Magukenki, and I got really excited, but then I was like, oh no, they just think that maybe. If anybody is also wondering, Chio, if you look at the teaser trailer, which we'll have on the site, there's this picture that the whole trailer starts with A on a picnic blanket with Chio, Saigu, and Sasori all kind of sitting there like friends, and it's all happy, and then they keep disappearing. And really quick in between their disappearance, you actually see how A lost them. It's very sad, but it's very poignant.
Oh, I really hope that she's still alive, because that could be a really fun storyline
Yeah.
for A to like revisit that, and then we'll find out so much more about what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that they actually give us more backstory. I mean, I don't know if it's technically A or the Raiden Shogun at this point. Both those characters I think they're A more so, have their own storylines. Like A has 2 stories that you can do in the game right now. And I feel like they just left us with so many more questions than answers. And neither one of them really answered any of these like hard-hitting questions about what happened to all her friends. Why did Makoto go before her? Why wasn't A sent?
Yeah, I feel like Makoto, when it comes to the Cataclysm and her going, she knew that her sister would follow her, and she knew there was a really good chance she was going to die. There's some talk that like A says she thinks that Makoto actually knows the future in certain aspects. So she pretty much left her behind, I think, to protect her.
You actually bring up something really interesting about Makoto possibly knowing the future. And Makoto, and we learned this a lot during A's second storyline, where we get to see Makoto's realm of conscious. Makoto is assumed to be very close with Istaroth, who, is the time god. And there's a lot of assumptions out there that Makoto and Istaroth kind of worked together in a lot of capacities. And that includes the creation of like the sacred Sakura tree. And something I found really interesting too is, if you remember back when we were talking about Enjo and Kanomiya, we talked about that book Before Sun and Moon. And in Before Sun and Moon, there is a story called The Parable of the Tree. And it's basically this cute little story, and there's a gardener, and the gardener really wants to plant a tree with these branches he has, and he finds out that like the branches are going to take 500 years to make a tree. And he's like, well, that's horse shit. I don't want to wait that long. I'm not going to make this tree. And then this priest comes by, and the priest is assumed to be like Istaroth in the story. And the priest tells the gardener that your one thought will echo through eternity. And the gardener's like really inspired by that thought and plants this branch and is like, okay, cool. And bam, there's immediately a tree. Like there's just a tree all of a sudden with this gardener. And Istaroth is assumed to have taken that seed and brought it into the past. And a lot of people, especially this one YouTuber, will link to her channel. I'm totally gonna butcher her name though. Ashikai?
Ashikai!
Yeah, Ashikai.
I think I'm butchering it. I don't know. I love her. I love her so much. If you're listening, I love you.
But Ashikai actually goes into a much better deep dive of that whole little like story, the parable of the tree. But it seems almost like too similar to the sacred Sakura story and how Egg apparently planted the sacred Sakura tree and it appeared in both realms. And so there's a lot of questions about like if Istaroth and Makoto were like good friends, because when this priest in the parable says, you know, your one thought is going to echo through eternity, you could compare that to a few other things said about Istaroth. When you actually look at the sundials that are at like the Thousand Winds Temple and that Thousand Winds like extension site island, they actually have words on them. And the words say, stories brought on the wind will bloom into legends in due time, which could just be some cute little thing about how Istaroth and Venti were besties and, you know, they're going to be born into like legends one day. But it also is interesting because the Sakura tree and Makoto kind of do the same thing. And also in Vera's Melancholy, which is the book in the game that we can read, there's also just one quote in volume 9 that says, only the future can save the past. So I feel like in Azuma, which ironically enough is our like nation of eternity, that's our big issue there. Ashikai also talks a little bit more about Vera's Melancholy in her video, but I don't know, it's just very interesting that eternity and time really come together in Inazuma through Makoto. And it's something you would not notice at first unless you're trying to put all these pieces together, because those sundials are in Mondstadt. No one's reading Vera's Melancholy. Sorry, not sorry. Like, no one is reading it. It's a very long book.
Hold up. Jean is reading that. That's her favorite series.
I meant none of us travelers.
Okay. True.
Wait, is it really Jean's favorite?
It's one of her favorites.
Is it a romance novel?
It's a romance novel. And if you go to I was about to say Juan Dinery. Don Winery. D. Luke has a copy of one of those goddamn volumes. Anyway.
It is, though, a very long book. And that's why Jean is still reading it since the game started. And that is why travelers have not read it. So I don't know. It's really interesting. And I think in Sumeru, we've learned a lot more about how all this crazy time warp stuff is going to affect us. We've learned a lot about Irminsul as well. But a lot of this time stuff really started in Inazuma. And I feel like none of us really had like an appreciation for it at the time because we were all so confused.
Yeah, especially because it does really the main part of the story when it comes into play is with the tree itself. So like that's the first time you're really like, hey, there's something that could be going back and forth here. And I don't feel like they gave that as much of a, like, you know, it was like a 2-minute thing and then they moved on.
It's really hard to focus in Inazuma because we're on the verge of death in almost every second we're in there.
Not if you do your quests correctly. You turn off all the thunder and lightning. That's how you know how far somebody's gone in Inazuma. If they're still getting killed by lightning, they did not do all their stuff.
Here's the thing.
Called out.
All of that is turned off. I'm just shit at the game.
No, you're not. I've co-opted with you. You're not. You're good.
It's just because I rely on Jean. I have some great hits with Jean. I love her. If you couldn't tell, she's my favorite.
Can we actually bring the story back a little bit? You were talking about the Archon War. There's some stuff that happens that's kind of important, or just not even, I would say important, just explains a lot about them that happened between the Archon War and then the Cataclysm, and then what ends up also, you know, turning into this Sakura tree and things like that. Like we said, they were ruling together, but you can really only have one Archon. Celestia's rules. Right. They only want one. So with the fact that they were twins, it had to come down to who's actually going to do it.
Yeah, and it very much felt like Makoto was going to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
And it really felt like A was like, I'm the muscle, you're the brain, let's do that. I mean, like it makes sense because I feel like identical twins are very much like that.
It's the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen syndrome.
Nah, it's the Zhongli and Guishang scenario over again.
See, now I'm just going to bring it back to Vampire Diaries and just say it's like the Gemini twins.
Oh my God. No. Okay, here's the thing. I I really liked that arc because I'm like, who is Kai? Because he's such a psychopath. And I absolutely loved, oh God, what's her name? I totally forgot her name. She was hot. She was really hot. I like older women.
Oh.
The story goes between these two siblings and then actually goes to the next ones too, like to the two girl siblings that are the daughters of the hot chick. And the whole idea is that there only one can prevail, which I think is something that is probably a common trope maybe in some way, like with twins and stuff, that there's always going to be like one that's going to be like one always has to kind of live in the shadow.
They're always like pitted against each other somehow. Yeah.
But I think in a beautiful way, though, they were supporting, Makoto and A were supporting one another so much that A actually sacrifices herself.
Well, that's because they were both great people and didn't actually follow the story of the Japanese divine twin god bullshit, which involved incest, and we don't like that.
Surprise incest.
Well, we talk about it a lot.
We do.
So maybe we do.
Here's the thing. We don't like it, but it just happens to happen all the fucking time.
Yeah, it does happen a lot.
Do you want to know something very happy, though?
Always.
In Japanese culture, twins are said to bring good fortune.
Not to Inazuma.
Well, at one point it was, and then the cataclysm happened, and then it wasn't.
A downfall of a nation for how many hundreds of years? All because a twin died.
This is why I say A is absolutely the Azushi Momoyama period.
Can we back up to the fact that A sacrificed her body?
Yeah, I'm confused about that. What does that mean exactly?
So let's first go to the actual part. So this comes from the Treasured Tales of Shukin Shinjushi book that you get at the Yai Publishing House. We referenced it in our Yai Publishing House episode as well. There's a specific line, and in reference to this, to come back to this, A is considered the shadow, while Makoto is considered the light. So when we reference the Shadow Shogun, we're talking about A. Though the Shadow Shogun was divinely skilled in martial arts and unsurpassed with the blade, she believed herself little more than a warrior with little understanding of mortal hearts. Thus, she chose to give up her bodily form, helping her sister to ascend to the heavenly citadel and obtain dominion over Inazuma. Shortly after, the true shogun, Makoto, set up her shogunate and began to rule over the land. Remembering their bond, she recalled A's divine will and reforged her body, thus returning her sister to her side once more as her Kagumasha.
Okay, let's take a poll right now. How many of you would sacrifice your body for your sister?
Oh, I thought you were going to say if she was a puppet. I was already saying no. Sacrifice my body for my sister?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd do it. She's kind of awesome.
No.
I have no siblings.
She is. My sister's awesome. I have a good older sister.
Awesome too.
She should sacrifice herself for you, Tiff.
If somebody gave me the thing that was like, it's either you or your sister, I would be like, all right, it's me.
Oh no. I don't like that.
Y'all got siblings. I cannot relate.
Just on the Kagemusha again too, Venti actually, when he talks about A, says, I remember her like when she was just a young Kagemusha training and stuff like that. So I think it's interesting that Venti actually remembers a time when Makoto was around and, A was this just shadow figure. And I think it's cool too because, in Japanese, that's quite literally the term for like being a political decoy. So I like how they pulled that in too from the culture. But also after Venti talks about how she was shadow god, he's also like, her weakness is dessert. Like, give her cookies.
That's what he points out.
Yeah,
that's Venti's whole thing about everything is she likes dessert.
It's that she was a shadow and dessert.
That could also be though when A was training, even when they were young children. I mean, they had to grow up at some point.
Did they? We don't know anything about archons, Tiff. They could have been born full-grown adults. We don't know. What if Nahida stays a kid the rest of her life? Are archons even born, or do they just appear?
Nahida got small because she used her power.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean Ruka Devata wasn't born.
Ruka Devata created Nahida out of a tree branch.
Yeah,
but because Ruka Devata had already shrunk because she used her power.
Yeah, but she's not like Nahida wasn't small because Nahida used a power,
Oh, well, yeah, she's small because Ruka Devata used the power.
It's better than being born from sea foam.
Okay, Ariel.
No. Nope, not Ariel. It's Aphrodite. Aphrodite's born for Seafoam.
Wait, does it in like the original like Grimm's fairy tales, doesn't the Little Mermaid become Seafoam?
Yes, at the end after she didn't kill the prince.
I'd kill the prince to not become Seafoam.
Yeah.
You know what I wouldn't do? Sacrifice my body for my sister.
Called out.
I have no siblings, so I cannot really participate.
I mean, I have a brother, and I don't think he'd sacrifice his body for me. So,
Moving on.
So with her being, though, the shadow of Makoto, it could be, like you said, the word comes from decoy and things like that as well. Like, same thing. Even if you reference like Star Wars with Queen Amidala, like that's the whole thing of she's actually kind of showing up as one of like the servants, but her decoy is kind of showing as queen. But I think that they were doing that kind of back and forth. So she was always her shadow, and maybe she just had a wings beneath my wing kind of like feeling.
Maybe. Or could have been like, technically, Makoto is the older sibling of the twins, and the older sibling is usually the golden child. But I want to focus on that reforged part.
Yeah.
Because when I first read it, I thought, puppet. But then, follow me on this journey, right? We know that the sword, the titty sword, was gifted to Makoto by one of the families that was super known for weapon forging, right?
Wait, what? Like Makoto was known for weapon forging?
No. The titty sword. The titty sword was originally Makoto's.
Yes.
And Makoto was given that sword by one of the reigning families that were swordsmiths, weapon crafty people, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what I thought. I might be entirely wrong. I might have pulled that out of my
I thought it was true too, Al. I thought I read that somewhere.
because I thought it wasn't Kazuha's family, but a family related to Kazuha's.
It was originally created from Makoto's divine might.
Oh, okay.
Legendary sword that was originally created from Makoto's divine might.
It was born of the power of her tits.
What? The sword was unsharp, and after Makoto died, I think someone else, like one of those families, took it and sharpened it.
No, it was passed down to A, and then when she actually used it to its full extent is when it actually, I think, gets its full power. No.
But to continue on, this brings me back to the point that even in the story, it says reforged. And at first I thought maybe Makoto was like, I want my sister back. I need my sister. I can't do this without her. I'm going to make a puppet of her. Or perhaps she used some of her divine energy to put A into the sword. This is crack theory shit. I'm more on the side of puppetry because of the Kagumasha, but
I don't think, people knew there were two of them, so there had to have been two physical bodies. I feel like there's a lot of like moving around, like she's some kind of like witchy witch with the fact that she's able to like put her consciousness later on into the sword herself and do all sorts of stuff like that she kind of like just brewed her up in a pot.
So how do we explain
Is she a witch?
that once A gave up her body in the Archon Wars, how did she come back?
From what I understood is that A sacrificed her body to give extra power to Makoto so that she could ascend to Celestia.
Yes.
So Makoto goes to Celestia and she's like, I'm the Archon, haha. And then she's like, I miss my sister. And she uses some kind of witchy magic to reforge her sister's body.
Mm-hmm.
So she needed the Hexen Circle?
No. Wait. Hold up. We had just talked about Nahida and Rukadabata being super small after using lots of power. Maybe when Venti was talking about he remembers when A is young, maybe it was like a baby A because she gave all that power to Makoto and was just growing up.
I like where your head's at, Al, but I think Venti doesn't really say that she was like small. He just says like a young trainee, basically.
Damn.
But I liked the headspace for that. That was good. I don't know. I feel like this is all witchcraft and crazy shit, man.
Yeah, there's some craziness going on over in the lightning world.
Like Makoto probably was like a catalyst wielder. Well,
yeah.
She had the sword, but she didn't use it.
Yeah, true, she did.
I mean, A has the sword and is a polearm, so
It's very true again. All very valid points. Nobody's using the damn sword.
Yeah.
I'd like to think Makoto was a healer.
That would make sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
And her personality as well. I mean, I think that's something that we can insinuate against a lot of the healers.
But seeing as how she recreated the body of her sister, does this mean that A is a puppet?
I refuse. I just refuse it. I refuse it.
Maybe she's a puppet creating a puppet.
Because I think that there's a difference between what happens with her and her reincarnation, which is actually one of the names of that crazy book that you can't say the name of, is Reincarnation of Raiden. But that her reincarnation wasn't necessarily like, let's get the scrap pieces from the backyard like A does for Wanderer and the Shogun.
So is it kind of like, I'm going to bring back Inuyasha, I am so sorry, like making a vessel for a soul to come back into to like reincarnate in that?
I mean, it sounds like she magically created A's body.
I don't think the A's body went anywhere.
She was just dead the entire time.
She sacrificed her said she was dead. And she was just like, hey, here's your consciousness. Let's smack that back in your head.
It was just in cryo.
Wait, you think her body was just like rotting?
Preserved and like,
in Shazaya.
Pickled and preserved.
Wait, would she have even been rotting? Because she's divine. She's a god.
Yeah, we don't know if she was born. We don't know if their body
A was not a god at that time.
A wasn't?
No, that's why she sacrificed her body to the god,
I mean, maybe she was a god, but she wasn't the archon.
No, she wasn't the archon, but she was still a god.
Well, I'd like to throw one other thing out there, which is that in that second A storyline that we do, where we learn a lot about the creation of the sacred sakura tree, and we learn a little bit about the ley line disorders, A is telling us how she basically, she's been chilling in Inazuma, and she agrees with us that like she needs to change what eternity means. And the Shogun, who is programmed as a puppet by A to protect eternity, is like, nah, bitch, we ain't doing that. And the Shogun actually stops A from being able to use the puppet body. So if A is currently using the Shogun body to move about Teyvat.
Yeah, this was very confusing to me. Is she in the body?
Was that when she was in the plane of euthymia?
So from my understanding, she is using the body.
Is she the body yadi yadi?
No, she's renting the body yadi yadi.
Same.
And the Shogun is like, you just broke my terms and conditions of this Airbnb, and I'm not letting you move anymore.
The fact that it's an Airbnb is even more detestable.
I know. It's sketchier. If someone's always got eyes on you.
There's a camera in the shower.
A is being watched at every corner by the Shogun, which is why the Shogun is like, stop trying to change eternity. You are threatening what I am programmed to protect.
It's like your programming was faulty. We used C# and we meant to do something else. I don't know. It's the only language I know.
Yeah, I mean, you might be on something there because like even the explanation of her isn't something like the Raiden Shogun is two beings in one body.
Yeah.
Like I always thought it was like A was hanging out in the plane of euthymia. When she decided to come down, she could take over.
I agree. But does that mean that there's a body or just a consciousness hanging out in the plane of euthymia? And just a quick recap too, I know we've talked about it in a lot of our past episodes, but for travelers who are like, what the hell are they talking about? The plane of euthymia is A's inner conscious world where she like meditates on eternity, basically. And the plane of euthymia is located in the titty sword, but the real name of the titty sword, as we keep calling it, is
Muso Ishin.
Thank you, B. B knew I was not going to get that one. Which is actually, is that what Miss Splitter is supposed to be?
No.
They're related in a way because the people themselves are related in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of like intertwined things cross over between different people and stuff within this story when you go even deeper.
But it really does make you wonder, though, all that jazz, if A is a puppet. And I know it's like this theory that we've kind of been like joking around with in some past episodes, but I think it's honestly a really valid question. And I don't think we have a solid answer on how A is currently hanging out in that plane of euthymia. Is there a body there or just a spirit?
So I No, I think that she does have her own body because I feel like in the second Archon quest, we actually get her to leave the plane of Euthymia. But I mean, who knows? Maybe she's taking control of the Raiden Shogun's body. I don't.
Because we never see them in the same place except in Makoto's consciousness.
Right.
So there's a lot of questions about that too. And just for travelers too, I know we've kind of been talking on and off about the story, but after the Shogun is like, stop using my body to defy eternity to A and the Shogun embark on this battle inside of Makoto's consciousness. That there's a door under the shrine where Yaimiko hangs out. It's unlocked as a permanent weekly boss after you finish the second A storyline. And this battle goes on for like 500 years until Yaimiko sends us back in to basically settle shit for them. So there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of like traveling inside of people's minds.
Yeah. Hashtag realm of consciousness.
I'll show you my realm of consciousness. No one wants to be there.
You know, I mean, we keep talking about too how her consciousness is in the sword, or the plane of Euthymia is in the sword. I don't think we really touched on how that gets there either. Which is when the cataclysm actually happens. And like we mentioned, Makoto goes there, as we know from all of our archons, who went, who didn't. She leaves without telling A that that's what she's going to go do. So she goes off and does that. A is kind of like back in Inazuma and stuff. She finds out that Makoto left. She puts her friend, Lady Saigu, in charge of Inazuma so she can go help her sister.
Right.
So she ends up going over to Conria, and she gets there just as Makoto is dying.
Yeah.
And Makoto herself is actually able to transfer her consciousness into the sword. It's like almost like a way of keeping her alive, I guess.
So she transfers a faint fragment of her will into the titty sword. And then gives it to A. And so we find out later that she won't unlock the fragment of her will until she uses the full potential of the sword, which does not happen until A is battling the Raiden Shogun.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I've decided that we're not going to do this whole thing where we're like stealing people's visions. And of course, the Raiden Shogun puppet is like, well, I was programmed to do this, so I'm going to fight you because I don't think you're thinking correctly. So they fight, they have a battle for 500 years. And then Makoto is like, hey, like she just bursts out of the sword, is like, hey, like, I'm your sister and I recorded this message many years ago.
Stop being a dick.
And you want to know what's funny is she comes out as a ball of light and her demon name is Ball. Although I guess they don't consider it a demon name, right? They just consider it her like archon name.
Yeah, it's their archon names, but all of the archon names are demons. Well, except for Beelzebul, which is A's, but that's a derivative of Baal, which is Makoto. So
they're two in the same. The only one that supposedly is not named by a demon or after a demon is the Cryo Archon.
But that's because they refer to her as the Tsaritsa. Nobody says that her name is Tsaritsa. They call her the Tsaritsa.
No, in one of the code names, I can't remember where I found this. I'll have to dig deep, and I'm probably talking out my ass. But she's named after one of the saints.
But we don't know that yet.
Not for sure. Not for sure. You're right.
But if that were true, this just is going to support my theory that we're going to get the Shesnaya and we're going to find out that we are on the same page as the Fatui.
What if we go to Shesnaya and we find out we're on the bad side?
No, I'm a
Yeah,
good
we are the
person.
villain because we're helping the Archon.
Because there's also one of the most interesting things too, with just a little side note, is Beans doesn't like playing as Raiden Shogun in the game because she doesn't know which one you're playing as. Because why? One's bad.
One's bad. I don't like playing as bad guy.
She's not bad anymore.
But
Yeah, but
you
she
don't know which one
scarred
you're
me.
playing as.
Hold up. And you bring out Child how often?
I think Child has redeeming factors.
They both scarred you though, because we fought both of them.
Yeah, and that's
We
why I don't
fought
pull
A,
for her.
And we fought Raiden Shogun.
Everyone's always like, you don't pull for A when she's on the banner. She's the most powerful person. I'm like, no, because I don't like her. These are my principles that I play by.
The heavenly Amanda principle.
Yeah. I don't have Wanderer either.
I love that. The heavenly Amanda principle.
He hasn't even gotten his redemption. He just left you in Liyue Harbor, and then you rebounded on Zhao.
No, he got redemption with Tusser and with Yoimiya. I've been seeing Child everywhere I go. He's keeping his eyes on me. I'm keeping my eyes on him. I know his history and his story. I know that he has abyssal corruption in his heart.
Anyway,
Sus.
so we're back at the Cataclysm.
SaveChild.com.
And A has rushed to her sister's side, who's dying. And her sister's like, here's my titty sword. I trust it to you.
I would be surprised that she pulled a sword out of her titty. I would. I would be quite surprised. She also don't have much of. She's not overly endowed. So I'd be like, really, where the hell did you put that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. It comes out of the chest.
Yeah.
So there's the passing of the titty sword.
Are you handing down them titties?
A becomes the shogun and then is like, wait, I think I'll create a puppet so that I can fuck off in my own plane of euthymia while someone else deals with all the day-to-day bullshit.
She's a little depressed and sad. And she even, she doesn't want to be the archon because her sister's not there. Like, she tries to break the gnosis and can't because it's not breakable. And so she basically goes, here, Yaimiko, hold on to this for me because I don't know where to put it. It doesn't match my outfit. So take it.
And Yamiko's like, I got you, girl. I got you.
That's how Yaimiko ends up holding it for her. They hold my bag. I'm going to go to the plane of euthymia.
For many, many years.
For many, many years. Yeah. But yeah, she makes her first puppet, which we know is the Wanderer. The Wanderer has too much empathy. And she's afraid of getting her heart broken again, basically. And
AKA Scaramouche.
Yeah. So she lets him wander off into the world like a sad little puppy with no home and scars him for life.
That will never come back to haunt anyone.
No, never. Seems like the humane thing to do. But then so she makes the second puppet, and that's the Shogun. And that's the one that's like hard as steel. Like, she's no nonsense. She is all of the anger that A has about losing her sister, basically all pent up. And she starts running things for A. She's still up there. She's kind of every once in a while, she's like, oh, you got a big question, I'll answer, but don't bother me with the normal little things. The Shogun is actually the one who is working with the Tenryo Commission to carry out the Sokogo decree and gathering all of the visions from people in Inazuma.
It sucks that A never programmed empathy into her.
She didn't want it.
Yeah.
I know.
That was the opposite of what she wanted.
I know, but goddamn, it made so much issues.
She saw it in Scaramouche and was like,
yeah, the empathy that Scaramouche had was too much for her. So she was like, bye-bye. Like, she wanted the cold, hard bitch.
And look where that got us.
While all of this, she just randomly makes some puppets,
I mean, as a puppet, creating puppets.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Why does everybody want it?
Listen, when Makoto created the new body for her sister, they used the word reforged. So I'm just saying she might be a puppet.
She's in the titty sword.
So we have A, basically taking over the reins. She creates the Shogun puppet and then fucks off into the plane of euthymia for many, many years. And then enter us.
Swing the door wide open. We're like, screw all this.
No, we're literally like, hi, Inazuma. Yeah, we just got off the crux. We're stretching our arms. We meet Toma, who sweeps us off our feet. We're vibing when we first get there.
We find out that the Raiden Shogun killed Kazuha's lover. Best friend.
Husband.
Both.
Yeah, this is why I can't play as her.
Because she killed Kazuha's boyfriend?
Yeah. I would just keep yeeting her off a cliff.
I mean, you do that to Albedo, but you love him.
Yeah, so Kazua's boyfriend, Tomo, which everybody calls him Tomo, which isn't, not to be confused with Toma. Tomo is just the word friend. And since he doesn't have a name, that's kind of what the fan base has kind of given him.
Which is so rude. They need to give him a name.
Yeah. He needs to be a part of the story. He wants to bring down the Shogun, basically, and he tries to outdo the Muso no Hitachi, the whole big swoopy that Shogun does. And he doesn't actually do it. I'm like, how do I tell you? He dies.
Yeah. She kills him as like a precursor to killing La Senora.
But then as she kills him, though, his vision goes flying and Kazuha grabs it. So Kazuha has his no longer in use vision.
Oh, so sad.
And we go through like a whole storyline in between Liyue and Inazuma where Beidou is like, let's try to find someone who can reinvigorate this vision.
Yeah, the fighting event, right?
And no one can. It doesn't reinvigorate until Kazuha saves us from the Raiden Shogun.
And now, does Kazuha save us, or does Tomo really just show up and hold on to the sword with him?
I think both. I think it's both.
I really have to say that I always love like the different cutscenes and stuff when they're that different animation, but that whole story and the way that it played out and the graphics, it was just gorgeous. So Travelers, if you haven't done that quest, the whole Archon quest there, for one, what are you doing?
Yeah, why are you listening to this?
But no, it is very beautiful. It was one of those first times I feel like that I had my mouth, like my jaw dropped. I was just like, what's going on here?
Mhm.
Like it really became very cinematic.
He was like totally like PTSD moment right there.
We'll say that is quite the hottest scene when we arrive in Rita. No, in Inazuma City. Fuck, I can't.
Oh, you mean like our first
Yeah, the
encounter?
first one. I think that was kind of like the precursor of like how fucking good this was gonna get.
Like where Toma's like tied up. Well, of course.
Of course I love it. Toma was tied up.
Remembers this.
Yes, absolutely. But no, like again, the split second moment where Kazuha reactivates Tomo's vision. I cried a little bit.
I always tell Feeny, I'm like, full body chills.
I was too busy making miso soup.
It was definitely one of those ones where I was like, I need to rewatch this. So like when our next friend did it, I was just like, can you stream this? I need to see.
Plus, like the lead up to it was just so like bizarre, so it threw you off, and then all of a sudden,
I just remember that it took me forever to beat the Raiden Shogun the first time, like right before that scene happened. And I must have done it like 95 times in Discord with just Brandon and our friend Christian. And I just kept doing it. And Christian doesn't even like play Genshin. He's like, yeah, like, woo. And I was just so fed up at the end that when that happened, I was like, what? And I was just finishing. That was like the last Archon line for me at the time. And I did go back and watch it like at least 3 times that night. Like I YouTubed it. And then I think I watched like a top 10 like clips or top 10 cutscenes. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and there are some really awesome cutscenes now. Sumeru has also given us some great cutscenes. I would say the Wanderer cutscene where he steps in front of the Traveler too is pretty top notch. These animal boys keep saving our lives. Zhao saving us in Liyue, which I guess does that mean we're gonna have to find an animal boy in Fontaine?
Actually, it's gonna be an animal lady this time.
I don't know.
At least I hope. Can we have a $1 bean moment? Let's go, lesbians. Let's go.
Thanks, Billy.
Billy. But yeah, it is a crazy freaking cutscene. And another reason not to like /the Shogun.
Well, you know what? Fair.
They tormented Kazuha.
Wait, did A apologize for that? Wasn't there some kind of moment in the Iridori Festival? Or was I like hoping for it?
So it wasn't during the Iridori Festival. It's actually during the Test of Courage event, that yokai event we had in the forest surrounding the Kamisato estate. Depending on who you pick, So if for travelers who didn't do this event, you get like 2 or 3 rounds where you get to pick a partner, basically. And one of the partners you could choose is Kazuha. And I picked Kazuha. That's why I remember it so well. And you're kind of doing things in the forest with Kazuha. And then out of the corner of your eye, you see A. And Kazuha looks at you and he's like, I am going to head out because I don't want to deal with any pleasantries, basically. And he's insinuating that he knows A would apologize, but he basically doesn't want to deal with it. And he walks away. And I can't remember if A says anything to us afterwards about it, but Kazuha definitely is like, meh. Social interaction with the person who killed my boyfriend.
Yeah.
No.
It wasn't her, but it was sort of
I was going to say, technically the Shogun killed Tomo.
But she programmed the Shogun, so
yeah. Because I think she does have a line where she's kind of like, R.I.P. somewhere.
How offensive.
Does she have a voice line about Kazuha?
I don't know because I don't have her.
I have her, but I just assume you know everything.
I don't think she does.
She's probably like, oh, the Kadehara fellow, his family sucked. They all died.
Is this before or after Scaramouche's rewrite?
Both. They suck. They still died.
I do love when she talks about Ito. She's like, who? Who?
Wow.
After, and his is like this whole bombastic side eye to him. It's beautiful.
Yeah, he actually has 2 voice lines where he refers to the Raiden Shogun /A. And the first one is when he's basically like talking directly about her, but there's a second one and it's his reaction to when there's thunder and lightning. And he's like, Shogun, what do you want? He basically yells at the sky. It's really funny. There are several people who actually refer to the Shogun /A because I don't really know if the people of Inazuma know there's a difference.
They don't.
There are people in Inazuma who have no idea. They will actually, even in some of your lines, like when they're talking and stuff, you'll see them refer to her as Baal still because they don't know that there was ever this switcheroony.
There are a few people that refer to the Shogun /A when they're talking about thunder and lightning, and that Ayato, Ayaka, Ito, Kujosera, and Yaimiko, they all refer to Shogun basically /A, because Yai knows, obviously, when they think about thunder and lightning. And Ayaka literally is like, what would you like, almighty one? And then Ayato is like, my mother told Ayaka when she was young to stop her fear of thunder and lightning. That thunder and lightning was just the archon trying to talk to her. And now I can hear Ayaka mumbling sometimes about thunder and lightning. Ito challenges the thunder and lightning. Sara is very respectful, like, what would you want me to do, your majesty? And then Yai is like, this sounds familiar. Like, it sounds like home.
It's my girl.
No one says that about the wind. No one is like, Venti. No one looks at a fucking rock and is like, Morax.
Well, because that's so mundane. And also, the wind carries farts, and sometimes it smells.
Hey, I'm fine with that. Sometimes life isn't all joyous.
That's the poeticness of it. Lightning is considerably rare as a phenomenon, while rock and wind is a daily occurrence. So it comes to be like, it's just, every day. But when lightning strikes...
Lightning and thunder was a very regular occurrence in Inazuma until we fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
True. And now it's not.
I also think it's funny. One other character that refers to the lightning and thunder is actually Charlotte. When we quickly meet Charlotte from Fontaine during the TCG event. And she's like, do you think the Shogun's lightning can hurt me in Fontaine? It's like, girl, you real worried right now.
So let's stop pussyfooting around. Let's actually go into the second story quest of A, which is so confusing. No one wants to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it.
The timey-wimey bullshit. And this is where I get fucked up. There's a reference of a passage of time. And to us, we have only recently, fought A, done the whole bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And now somehow 500 years or however many hundreds of years have happened in the plane of euthymia. Like, what the fuck? Is it happening in there?
It's not in the plane of euthymia. It's in that realm of Makoto's
consciousness. Well, is that the plane of euthymia? It's kind of unclear. We go into the plane of euthymia. We best A and convince her that she needs to stop her nonsense, which she does. She's like, okay, agreed. Then later we go back and we're like, hey, girl, maybe you should like come out of this plane of euthymia and like look at your nation, like actually visit the world. And she's like, okay, I'll do that. And so we walk around with her. But then we also start seeing all this like filth from the ley lines, sort of like memories of the Archon War coming to life.
I think we may be combining her story quest. This first storyline is like when we like convince her to come out and everything like that. I forget what that's the one where we save that guy. No, that's Ayato. I don't remember the first story quest, but the second story quest starts with at the Adventurers Guild. The Adventurers Guild commissions us to like go check out why Rift Towns are attacking the sacred Sakura tree roots.
Right.
And then we run into like A there.
Oh, okay. So we realize that there are Rift Towns going all willy-nilly. And we go to investigate. We find out that A is, outside of the Shogun's puppet body? Or is she using this?
Yeah, she's currently Airbnb-ing the body.
Okay, I don't like that.
This was her body originally. She made this. This is hers. Property of A.
But does A have her own body?
I don't know.
I think she doesn't. I think she has multiples. You know, like how Robin has the same suit to fight crime in?
She's got a bodysuit. A literal, like, zip it up on the side.
How else is she going to get in there? We know how, magic, but I like to imagine it's just entering in the back halls.
That means A does not have her own body. So whenever she's playing, it's like she's using the puppet body. Which proves my theory that A is a puppet. Thank you, Tiff.
She's just using a puppet. That doesn't mean she is the puppet. She's using a puppet.
Well, that's where that question of like, does she have a body chilling in the plane of euthymia come into play?
Or what if she never had a body?
Yeah, like does the plane of euthymia actually have to have a physical being? Like, is it enough to be in this consciousness? But I don't know why I swore there was a time where, like, I feel like we were walking down like the side hills of Inazuma with A, and there was almost like a comment of gotta make sure nobody sees you. Like if the other one's over there.
Oh.
That maybe there was actually an explanation there, or it was a question that happened in my head and I just put it in the game.
I do think that in that second storyline, there is something said about that, like, but it's not because the Shogun is out and about. It's because the Shogun is supposed to be doing something else. So they don't want, like, the people to see the Shogun not doing their duty type of thing.
Aha. You said duty.
But yeah, we're helping, like, we're clearing the Rift Towns out, and when they are eating at the tree roots, they're actually eating away at like the ley lines as well. So we clear them and we find this one root that is totally hollow and it's leaking like this weird goo stuff, and out of the goo comes like this fog that creates the ghosts, and we see a few ghost apparitions and we kind of see them playing out this Archon War storyline. And I'm not actually sure if it's the Archon War or the Cataclysm they're playing out, but they're talking about how they're fighting for the Almighty Shogun and blah blah blah, and she kind of has this realization of like, oh my god, like eternity, like I'm doing this wrong. And that's when she's like, you guys convinced me last week to come out of my mind and eat dessert again, and I'm realizing that I was wrong and I need to change eternity. And that's when she kind of has like a freeze frame moment where she's like a robot and can't move. And she's like, eat. And the Shogun's like, how fucking dare you? No, she's a little calmer than that, but
I kind of like the version of it better though.
So that sort of reinforces the theory that they're sharing a body.
Right. Definitely reinforces that. Absolutely. And then A is like, all right, well, I gotta go figure this out. Come with me. And we go with her and she opens a portal under the shrine. into Makoto's realm of consciousness. And in there, we run into the Shogun, and the Shogun is like, you're trying to change eternity. And we find out that the Shogun is basically programmed that if anyone wants to change eternity, including A herself, they have to basically fight to the death. And so they start this battle, and A kind of pushes us out of Makoto's mind and is like, go find Yaimiko. So we go find Yaimiko, and we're like, Yaimiko, what the hell's going on again? And Yaimiko's like, ugh, all right. And so Yaimiko goes and pushes us back into the portal with some sort of answer. And that's when we get to the portal, and we're actually 500 years later, because time works really weird in that consciousness. And they've been like fighting it out for 500 years. Like A hasn't had a single dongo milk like the entire time.
That's why she
That's
was
the
irritable.
true crime. That's the true fucking crime here.
I mean, that's how she kept fighting for 500 years.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, I couldn't have popped in for like a quick second and just like, here you go, my love. A dongo milk.
Yai only does love from afar. She literally sends other people to do her biddings every time.
God damn it.
So then when we get there, they fight, and that's when we unlock that really crazy like Raiden Shogun hand battle thing.
The hot shit.
Yeah, which is a new weekly boss at that point. So that's our second Inazuma weekly boss. And after we defeat her, they finish their battle, and the Shogun's like, all right, we could change eternity now. And that's when Makoto's little ball of light comes out and is like, hello, lovely sister of mine. I'm here. And Makoto gives a seed to A for a tree, and A basically plants it in this realm of consciousness, and that little seed creates the sacred Sakura tree.
So this is so confusing because are we in Makoto's realm of consciousness during this fight or A's?
So I believe that we are in Makoto's, and I forget why exactly we're in Makoto's.
Well, we know that Makoto implants a faint fragment of her will into the titty sword.
Yeah.
So, but it will not be unlocked until the full potential of the titty sword is used by A. So A, I guess, uses the full potential during the 500-year battle. And then Makoto's like, hey, girl. So, I mean, is Makoto's fragment inside A's realm of consciousness? It's so confusing.
I think what it is, and this is going to sound like super meta, but I think that Makoto's fragment lives within a greater like realm of consciousness. So it's like you won't learn the truth of that fragment until you use the full potential of the sword, but you can kind of access it at any point. Nothing's in there. Nothing's going to happen in there. Don't know if that's 100%. I'm definitely not a realm of conscious expert by any stretch, but that's kind of what I felt it was, because it's definitely described in the storyline as us going into Makoto's head, like her headspace, which is super confusing. But that's also where a lot of that stuff I mentioned earlier about like Istaroth and like that parable from Before Sun and Moon comes into play too. And it really begs the question of like, was Istaroth at the Cataclysm? And was Istaroth involved with Makoto somehow?
Yeah, well, in retrospect, A is like, I think a higher power may have had something to do with all of this, because within whoever's realm of consciousness, Makoto gives A that like seed. That little ball of light that turns into a seed, which then takes root in the past of Inazuma and turns into the sacred Sakura tree, which keeps Inazuma from falling prey to all the filth of the ley lines, if I got that right.
No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then that actually even goes just to bring it all back to season 1, when we talked about the sacred Sakura and the cleansing ritual that has to happen because of that. And Hanekira Shato, who is actually someone we meet at that point, who is made up of A's dead friends' memories. And she goes ahead and cleans that tree. Because, dead friends. We got dead sisters, we got dead friends. dead boyfriends.
Everybody did.
I'm still just so confused. Like, where is the plane of euthymia? That's my first question. My second question is, does A have her own body?
I feel like the plane of euthymia is like an existential place. Like doesn't take up a physical location.
It's in the mind.
Yeah.
But Traveler goes there physically.
Yeah, but we're amazing.
Yeah, I throws her in there.
We go into her mind.
Remember, we had to get like a special like ticket.
Doesn't that imply that like A can leave and have the physical body just like us? Because like we go there like with our physical body.
Yeah.
But we also come out of it terribly ill. Like, remember that whole walk out when everything's like electrocuting you, it seems? Like,
No, that was before we went into the plane of euthymia, because that was after Senora got slaughtered.
oh, true.
What if the plane of euthymia is just like a little pocket dimension?
It could be.
It definitely is, but it's like, where is the dimension?
I like to think it just literally lives underneath the shrine.
Yeah, like that's where the domain is, right? So that makes sense, but is that A's realm of consciousness?
Well, no, that's Makoto's under there.
Wouldn't it be the same since they're both the Shogun?
Ooh,
Because if A inherited everything from Makoto, even the sword, and the sword is an extension of Makoto and her divine power, wouldn't the plane of euthymia would have originally been Makoto's, but is now A's, but it's just the plane of euthymia?
I feel like we need help. I feel like we need our listeners to write in.
Please.
I will say, at the end of that storyline, when we do go back to the shrine and talk to Yaimiko, A does say Istaroth in one of those like little like add-on words that they do sometimes. She does specifically mention Istaroth as like that possible higher being that is helped out. And also, it really does go back to a lot of questions about like, well, who is Istaroth? It also makes me curious if Yaimiko has a connection to Istaroth, because if this is all about time, and honestly, it's a lot about moments as well. And in Before Sun and Moon, they do actually refer to Istaroth as the god of moments as well. He's like the god, he or she. I think we decided Istaroth was a she, right? But Istaroth is considered the god of time, the god of moments, and the god of the thousand winds.
Mhm.
And so if Istaroth is a god of moments, there is a possibility that they could control these like mini planes that are happening and these different like times frozen, like places frozen in time, similar to the goddess of flowers, Oasis, that is frozen in time.
Well, there is something that Makoto says, and I can't remember if we find this out at the end of the second half of the Archon quest. Makoto has like a line that she says, "Eternity extends time into infinity. Dreams illuminate each moment within." Because if we look at infinity and eternity, yes, that's an absolute, but it's not fun. Like, that's just nothingness. All the little moments, those sweet little moments, make it, purposeful.
And that's a big thing too, is that Makoto is big into dreams, which I think we mentioned a little earlier. And that's interesting because like Sumeru didn't have dreams for so long, and now Nahida is like trying to get involved in dreams. I wonder if like, Nahida has ever gone to Irminsul and been like, let me talk to Makoto.
It's possible. And like the only way we were able to defeat A the first time was the dreams of the vision holders.
Yeah, all their aspirations and hopes.
Yeah, we got all their powers. Yeah.
The second time, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's also what helps us defeat the fake god of Scaramouche in Sumeru. Nahida calls on like the dreams of her people.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we keep time looping that fight.
Hold up. I'm going to throw something fucked up out there. Is our story just so we can awaken as Istaroth and become the omnipresent god?
Ooh.
Totally possible. One of our listeners actually sent us a theory last week or the week before that I'd never heard of before, but they said it's common, where Paimon is Istaroth, which is something we've talked about before. But basically, as we've seen with this, the whole like only the future can save the past, and stories brought on the wind will bloom into legends in due time, and all the seeds and stuff, whatever, all those parables and phrases that we've heard. The idea is that like Paimon becomes Istaroth. And after seeing all these plights happening in Teyvat, discovers her true godhood and is able to go back in time and, like help the people of Enkanomiya. And so all the stuff we're hearing that Istaroth has done is truly just Paimon, and Paimon doesn't know it yet.
I like that. Wait, who said this?
One of our listeners actually emailed it in.
What's their name?
Yes. Their name is Abshid, Abshid. And they said it's like a total crackpot theory, but basically they said, I think Paimon is not Istaroth, but becomes Istaroth and goes back in time to set in motion the current events. And specifically refers to planting the sacred Sakura tree, meaning that things in the future can affect the past and vice versa. So it would be interesting to see if that happens.
Thank you, Abshid.
But I do think that's all the time we have for today. Honestly, there's never enough time to talk about all the timey-wimey bullshit happening in this game. But I think we got to cut it for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening and coming down quite a time warp. I'm going to go do the time warp at home. Like, let's do the time warp again. Get it? If you haven't seen Rocky Horror, you should go watch it. Anyway, next week, we are going to be talking about the event Shadows Amidst Snowstorms, which aka the Susbeto event. We're going to be doing a recap of a lot of the lore involved in that story for so many of our travelers who were unable to play it.
Yeah, it's going to be a departure of our format where we're going to actually just recap an event.
Yeah, we've had it brought to our attention by some friends and also by some of our followers. We actually answered one of their questions about it in the mailbag episode. And we think that this has a lot of really important stuff going on. So we're going to deep dive into it and hopefully catch everyone up so you don't have to watch the event yourself. Until then, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next time.
Bye, puppetry nerds.